35 Bible Facts about the 7-day Sabbath. Who make the Sabbath? When? Why? Which day does the Bible say is God's holy Sabbath day? Has the 7-day Sabbath been abolished for Christians? How long will the Sabbath exist? Here are 35 Bible facts about the Sabbath. 1. God rested on the 7th day after spending the first 6 days of the week creating this earth. Genesis 2 verses 1-3. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the 7th day God ended his work which he had made. And he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the 7th day, and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made. 2. The Creator blessed the 7th day. Genesis 2 verse 3. 3. He sanctified, made holy, the 7th day. Genesis 2 verse 3 and Exodus 20 verse 11. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the 7th day. Why the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. 4. He make the 7th day the Sabbath in the Garden of Eden. Genesis 2 verses 1-3. 5. God make the Sabbath before sin entered the world. Therefore, the Sabbath was intended for all human being, not just Jews. Jesus said the Sabbath was made for mankind. Mark 2 verse 27. And he said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. 6. The Bible never refers to the Sabbath as the Jewish Sabbath. Instead, it calls it the Sabbath of the Lord. Exodus 20 verse 10. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall not do any work, you nor your son, nor your daughter, your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger that is within your gates. 7. The 7-day Sabbath is a memorial of creation. Every time we rest on the 7th day as God did at creation, we commemorate the creation and God's creative power. Exodus 20 verse 11 and 31:17. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the 7th day he rested, and was refreshed. 8. The Sabbath was part of God's law before Moses received the 10 Commandments at Sinai. Exodus 16 verses 4 and 5, and 22-30. Then said the Lord to Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you. And the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them, whether they will walk in my law, or no. And it shall come to pass, that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in. And it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. 9. God placed the 7-day Sabbath in the heart of his 10 commandments. The Sabbath commandment is as important and binding upon Christians as any of the other 9. Exodus 20 verses 1-17. 10. God commanded the observance of the 7-day Sabbath with his own voice, speaking from heaven. Deuteronomy 4:12-13. And the Lord spoke to you out of the middle of the fire. You heard the voice of the words, but saw no similitude. Only you heard a voice. And he declared to you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform, even 10 commandments. And he wrote them on 2 tables of stone. 11. God wrote the Sabbath commandment on tables of stone with his own finger. Exodus 31 verse 18. And he gave to Moses, when he had made an end of communing with him on Mount Sinai, 2 tables of testimony, tables of stone, written with the finger of God. 12. The 10 commandments, including the 7-day Sabbath commandment, were sacredly preserved within the most holy place of God's sanctuary. Deuteronomy 10 verses 1-5. 13. God required careful obedience to his 7-day Sabbath commandment, insisting that we rest in Sabbath even if urgent work is waiting. Exodus 34 verse 21. 6 days you shall work, but on the 7th day you shall rest. In ripening time and in harvest you shall rest. 14. Disobedience to the Sabbath commandment resulted in death for God's people, the Israelites, during their wilderness wanderings. Exodus 20 verses 12 and 13. Moreover also I gave them my Sabbaths, to be a sign between me and them, that they might know that I am the Lord that sanctify them. But the house of Israel rebelled against me in the wilderness. They walked not in my statutes, and they despised my judgments, which if a man do, he shall even live in them. And my Sabbaths they greatly polluted. Then I said, I would pour out my fury on them in the wilderness, to consume them. 15. God says that obedience to his 7-day Sabbath is a sign that we recognize him as our God. Exodus 31 verse 13, Ezekiel 20 verse 20. And hallow my Sabbaths, and they shall be a sign between me and you, that you may know that I am the Lord your God. 16. God says that the 7-day Sabbath is a sign that he saves us and makes us holy. Exodus 31 verses 12 and 13. 17. God promised that Jerusalem would stand forever if his people were faithful in observing his Sabbath. Jeremiah 17 verses 24 and 25. 18. God's people suffered captivity in Babylon because they failed to keep God's Sabbath holy. Nehemiah 13 verses 17 and 18. 19. Jerusalem was destroyed because God's people failed to keep his Sabbath holy. Jeremiah 17 verse 27. 20. God pronounces a special blessing on Gentiles non-Jews, who keep his Sabbath holy. Isaiah 56 verses 6 and 7. 21. God promises to bless anyone who keeps the 7-day Sabbath holy. Isaiah 56 verse 2. Blessed is the man that does this, and the Son of Man that lays hold on it, that keeps the Sabbath from polluting it, and keeps his hand from doing any evil. 22. God calls upon us to consider the Sabbath delight and honorable, and promises to bless us if we do so. Isaiah 58 verses 13 and 14. 23. Jesus kept the 7-day Sabbath while he lived as a man on this earth. Luke 4 verse 16. John 15 verse 10. If you keep my commandments, you shall abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments, and abide in his love. 24. The 7-day Sabbath is the Lord's day, it belongs to him. Mark 2 verse 28, Exodus 20 verse 10, Isaiah 58 verse 13, Revelation 1 verse 10. I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and heard behind me a great voice, as of a trumpet. 25. Jesus says that he is the Lord of the Sabbath. Mark 2 verse 28. Therefore the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. 26. Jesus defended the Sabbath as a merciful institution designed for the well-being of all humanity. Mark 2 verses 23 to 28. 27. Jesus did not abolish the Sabbath. Instead, he carefully taught how should observe it. Matthew 12 verses 1 to 13. 28. Jesus explicitly denied that he had come to do away with the law, including the Sabbath commandment. Matthew 5 verses 17 to 19. 29. Jesus taught that we should do good on the Sabbath. Matthew 12 verse 12. How much then is a man better than a sheep? Why it is lawful to do well on the Sabbath days. 30. Jesus told his disciples that they should continue to consider the Sabbath to be important at the time Jerusalem would be destroyed, an event that took place some 40 years after his death and resurrection. Matthew 24 verses 15 to 20. 31. The woman who had been followers of Jesus during his life here on earth carefully kept the 7-day Sabbath following his death. Luke 23 verses 55 and 56. 32. The Bible identifies the 7-day Sabbath as the day between the day of Jesus' crucifixion, Friday, and the day of his resurrection, Sunday. Luke 23 verses 50 and 24. 1. 33. The Apostle Paul kept the 7-day Sabbath following Jesus' death and resurrection, Sunday, Acts 13:14, 42 to 44, 18:4 and 16:13. And on the Sabbath we went out of the city by a riverside, where prayer was wont to be made, and we sat down, and spoke to the women which resorted thither. 34. As was Paul's custom, or habit, to worship on the 7-day Sabbath. Acts 17 verses 2 and 3. And Paul, as his manner was, went in to them, and 3 Sabbath days reasoned with them out of the Scriptures. 35. The Sabbath will be kept holy in heaven throughout eternity. Isaiah 66 verses 22 and 23.